time for Wex On, Wex Off with Jason Wexler.
Another exciting edition of Wex On, Wex Off. Jason Wexler here. Happy to go out to the phones. Joining us now, the voice of the Nets, the voice of the NFL on CBS, and the voice of the NBA on TNT, Ian Eagle. Ian, how you doing?
Hey, what's up, Wex? How you doing, buddy?
Appreciate you coming on, and you voiced yourself on the intro. I mean, that's as good for the brand as you can get. We had Noah on last week. You guys are really doing some great things for this show.
Yeah, I think it'll just have to be my wife and my daughter on the next 2 weeks, and then you got it covered.
Well, I figured I'd shoot you an email. They'd get me their availability, and we'd work something out.
I don't think sports would be the topic. You'd have to venture off into some other areas.
We could talk about the Kardashians. I don't know anything, but I can Google. All right, let's go with your wheelhouse. The biggest offseason acquisition here in New York. Aaron Rodgers coming to the Jets, and really just taking the whole thing by storm. What do you think are reasonable expectations for the Jets this year?
Well, I think their own reasonable expectations are to be a legitimate contender. They're not hiding from what the level of play that they're anticipating. The fact that they have this young core that certainly last year surprised some people early in the season, and then, as we know, once Breece Hall went down with an injury, the offense was never quite the same. Zach Wilson had major struggles. They went to Mike White and ultimately didn't have enough to make the playoffs, couldn't win a game down the stretch of the year. But the young talent combined with Aaron Rodgers and the tone he has set, I think that's as big a reason why they're feeling so good about their chances. Is that it's not just they acquired a future Hall of Famer. They acquired someone who was highly motivated, who is very happy in his surroundings, and feels like there's still top-level football left in his body. So for him to make the statement early in training camp that this is not his last year, he's not looking at retirement, he sees this as a relationship with the Jets. I think both sides have been not just pleased with what's gone on so far, but even surprised at how much it's worked. Now you got to go play games. That's the one thing. We can talk about all the good vibrations right now, but when you start keeping score and emotions are high and expectations from fans and from players and from coaches and from staff and from ownership gets ratcheted up a notch, then things can change in a hurry. But for right now, I'm not sure it could have gone any better than they anticipated when this marriage came together.
And if you're the Jets brass, you're happy that Aaron Rodgers takes a play out of Tom Brady's playbook, takes a playbook, and they're able to acquire all these guys. The newest acquisition is Dalvin Cook, and it might be the best running back that Aaron Rodgers has ever had.
Yeah, I think the questions with Dalvin Cook are simply, does he still have the juice? Is he the same guy that we've seen go to the Pro Bowl 4 times, rush for over 1,000 yards 4 times? The Jets saw it firsthand last year when they played the Minnesota Vikings. He is really dangerous in a position that has taken on less importance in terms of individual ability than I can recall in my years covering the NFL. The running back spot, which is still a big piece to what you do offensively, but the idea that you have to have one bell cow, one guy that does it all, those days are done. There's a lot more running back by committee. These are not high draft picks anymore where you've used a first rounder on a running back and now you got to run them into the ground because you have to justify the pick that you made. Teams are doing it a different way. And in doing it that way, I think the Jets just wanted to know that they had some serious insurance. That's really what it came down to for me. Couple things. One, the window of opportunity. When you have Aaron Rodgers, you're not looking at this as a 7-year plan. You're trying to win now, today, literally. You're trying to win the day. And that's why you get a Dalvin Cook. Second, the injury to Breece Hall last year against Denver, the team just wasn't prepared. They did not have another guy in the stable that was going to be able to maintain that level. Bam Knight ended up playing a great deal. Michael Carter was in his second year and was trying to be that guy, but they didn't have it in terms of depth. Now with Cook, with Brees Hall, they believe that they've got the makings of a serious running back room. And you throw Michael Carter in there, you throw Abanaconda in there, and now they feel good about that position moving forward. So that's a big reason why. In addition, because of Aaron Rodgers making the adjustments in his contract, it allowed some flexibility. And by the way, Wex, they still have flexibility. They are not up against the salary cap number by any stretch. So this team could get very creative by the time the trade deadline rolls around if they feel like they need to upgrade in some other areas.
And another team that took a big upgrade was my New York Giants. Giants will keep it with MetLife Stadium. The Giants get to the playoffs. They do a lot better than people anticipated they probably would do. Brian Dable's able to mold Daniel Jones. And what do you continue to see as Daniel Jones's upside? What's a realistic goal for the Giants this year?
Well, everything went the way that the Giants envisioned when they hired Brian Dable. In addition to just pushing all the right buttons with the team, he did exactly what they needed to happen with Daniel Jones, someone that they could form a relationship and trust with. And I think that was the biggest part that I noticed covering a few Giants games last year, that Daniel Jones recognized that they were in it together. That's not to say previous coaches didn't want to see Daniel Jones succeed, but a lot of it was based on, hey, we're going to do it my way, and I think you could fit into this. And it was the opposite with Dable. Dable didn't say, this is my system, and by hook or by crook, you've just got to find a way to make it work. He went the other way. He said, this is what you do well. We're going to tailor this to your strengths. And maybe that's the first time that Daniel Jones had heard that in an NFL uniform. So obviously it happens in a contract year. He gets the big deal. Now the expectations and perceptions of him are completely different because of that one season. What else happened? They added speed. They're much faster than they were a year ago. The skill position group last year was lacking. Injuries were a part of it. Just in general, personnel wasn't where it needed to be. This year, they're better equipped to maybe open up the offense a bit more. They believe they're going to take a step in the right direction defensively, which was competitive last year. But Wink Martindale now another year with these guys, some new names as well. So the difference from where we were a year ago to where we are today, I think the Giants are a better football team than they were a year ago. But people also are ready for them. The Giants did surprise people last year. They won so many games in tight situations. That's a testament to great coaching and great preparation and great chemistry. And you can't just snap your fingers and assume that happens again. The hope is this team is now tested a bit and is ready for what is going to be a bigger challenge in 2023 because they're not going to sneak up on anybody in the NFL.
You talked about perception and what a difference a year could make. We'll do one more with the NFL, and then we'll transition over to basketball. A guy that has a lot to prove this year, Ian, is Russell Wilson. Obviously, a down year last year. Pete Carroll's comments coming out about Nathaniel Hackett, and the Broncos got some playing to do.
Yeah, they do. And it's funny how it works in this league. A year ago, if you and I had this same conversation, I think the Broncos were one of the hottest topics in the NFL because of Russell Wilson and all of their eggs being in that basket. Well, they make a change. Obviously, it wasn't working with Coach Hackett, and Sean Payton is now in to run the show. And Sean brings a resume. And Sean brings a Super Bowl, and Sean brings a lot of opinions on what he thinks is the right way to run an NFL program. So with that comes a different viewpoint. And I think for Russell, there are going to be no more excuses. If this doesn't work, there's no blaming the coach. This is now Sean Payton, who is tried and true and proven in this league. So part of it is motivational, no doubt, from Coach Payton. But the other part for any NFL observer is let's wait and see. Let's see, is this team better schooled, and is Russell doing the things that make him successful? What always struck me about Russell, had a game, his third game his rookie year, and Pete Carroll, of course, the head coach of Seattle, before we go in to meet with Russell Wilson in our production meeting, Pete said, "Hey, have you met Russ yet?" And we said, "No, no." He goes, "Oh, you're going to be blown away. So mature. He gets it." And it was Dan Fouts and I doing the game. And he was right. He was so wise beyond his years. He was so cool and calm and collected. And that worked for him for many, many years. Now you've got to shift sometimes in that position. You can't just be the same player. You've got to make adjustments. Every great quarterback, for the most part, has done that to some degree. Even Peyton Manning at the end of his career, and Brady at the end of his career, they were picking and choosing the methods that worked for them. And I think this year we're going to find out, can Russell pivot a bit and do the things that Sean Payton needs him to do for this team to get back to a winning culture.
Ian Eagle, the voice of the NBA on TNT, as well as the Nets on Yes, will transition now to basketball. I want to talk a little bit about the people that you have the pleasure of working with. Obviously, you get to work with Richard Jefferson, a former Net, and you guys really have some great back and forth. Obviously, you're mainly with Sarah Kustok. What have you seen about her evolution the last few years? Obviously, she started with Yes on the sidelines and has been able to, really run with her opportunity and, be able to add so much to all these Yes Network broadcasts.
Yeah, she's just ultra prepared and lives this day in and day out. This is a huge part of her life. She's not just parachuting in to talk about the NBA. She is eating it, breathing it, thinking about it all the time. And that reveals itself on the air. There's also just a likability that you can't teach. When she walks into a room, people are excited to see her. She's a breath of fresh air every time you hear her on the air, and her passion comes through. The timing for her is the one that you just never know with people, and who gives them a chance and who sees them in a certain role. The basic premise at Yes was that John Filippelli and Frank DeGrace saw her as more than just doing sideline reports. Her knowledge, her ability to talk the game, and her on-air persona were all the reasons why she was given an opportunity. And she got a couple games the first year. The next year she got 10 games, and then it just kept growing and growing and growing. And there's a reason why she's on so many different platforms talking about the NBA now, because she knows her stuff and she truly loves the job. So that is, to me, the first thing that has to be part of the equation for anybody that wants to do this. If it doesn't sound like you want to be there, then we have a problem. That's the part of this job that you can't even negotiate. That is a non-negotiable. And she always sounds like she wants to be there and does want to be there.
And I'll ask you, is Richard Jefferson the same on the air as he is off the air?
He is. He's completely sarcastic and caustic and funny and smart and witty and irreverent. All of those things are a part of who he is off the air, and he brings that same approach on the air. The crazy part about this job is the simple thing to tell someone is, hey, just be yourself. And that's sometimes difficult. The light goes on and you're now on television or radio, and you feel something change and shift in your brain that you've got to do it this way or that way. And the reality is, you just want the essence of you to come through. And with Richard, from day one, I think I did his first official game with him. He had done some fill-in stuff when he was hurt with the Cavaliers. So I think he popped on some games here and there and did some stuff with the Warriors as well. But his first official game as an analyst, you tell someone, you look him in the eye, say, hey, we're just going to have fun, just be yourself. And he actually was himself. There was not a huge difference between the on-air Richard Jefferson and the off-air Richard Jefferson. And for viewers, that's a good thing because he's a really interesting guy that sees things through a unique lens. He just doesn't spew out the same old stuff. His perspective is different. And that is something that you look for in television radio, someone that's just not going with the same old thing, but it's natural to him. It's not a made up persona. So I've enjoyed it. He's a lot of fun, and he's really smart, and he's really good at this. And it's not surprising that he's become so successful in such a short period of time.
So many things I want to get to. I'm just thinking of questions where you're going, and I'm like, oh, which ones do I want to ask him? I have so many. Do guys take too many 3-pointers? They're driving to the basket. They can take a layup and they ditch it out for the quarter three. Are we too obsessed with the 3-point ball?
Yeah, and I think we've gotten to a point where the analytics have come more into play, and coaches and the people behind the staff, the ones that are paid to figure out what's the best way to win a game, have computed the idea that, hey, if you take more threes and make more threes, you're going to win more games. And that's all well and good on paper, as we know, but you got to have the pieces to actually go out and do it. And you've got to have the right pieces to go out and do it. It's exciting from a play-by-play person's point of view. Long threes in general, when they're cashed in, it's a highlight that feels like a moment. Not to say that layups aren't highlights or dunks aren't highlights or turnaround jumpers in the lane aren't highlights, but there's still something about a 3-pointer. Is it perfect for where we are today in basketball? I don't know. I mean, the positionless part of the game has certainly played a larger role in no longer defining who is what and what you have to be. You're this height, you must play this position. So I think it's made for a fun, flowing game, but is it the most effective way to go down and score every time you're on offense? No, it's not. I mean, the percentages would tell you differently.
Fair enough. I want to go back to one thing on the NFL because I did mean to ask you this. Do you think the overtime is too short? It's only 10 minutes. That's too short for me, Ian.
What's too short?
To go back to the NFL, it got me thinking about something else. Do you think the NFL overtime is too short?
Yeah, I think the NFL is very much locked in on moving it along. They don't want 4-hour games. They don't want trouble with television spilling over into the next window. And they're trying to figure a way to make these more digestible and to make sure that the day goes the way that they want the day to go. So is that a reason why it's not a long, drawn out overtime anymore? Probably. I think they're basically saying, hey, look, if we can't figure out a winner in 3 hours and 12 minutes, we got a problem. We can't have marathons. These are not standalone games. These affect television windows, and that's a big part of it. So I see your point, but I see the NFL's point as well, which is we've got a business to run, and it's not just the one game that you're locked in on that your team is playing in. There's a bigger picture in mind here.
And talking about that bigger picture, this is going to sound like a joke, but it is a serious question. You do the games on Sunday. You're getting ready to do the next game on Thursday on Westwood One on the radio. Is part of your preparation watching Red Zone from the day before?
No, not at all. I'm locked in on just my teams, and if I have a game I'm doing on Sunday, the setup used to be way back when I was doing one game a week. CBS would send us a VHS tape with my game and then the game involving one of the two teams that I have the following week, and then a tape of the game involving the other team. So I would sit back and watch 3 games for the preparation the following week. When I started doing various other assignments, the time commitment had to change in how you were preparing for these games. And you know this from your college years of preparing for for broadcasts, it doesn't start the day of the game. It starts 5, 6 days before the game. So my main goal is to get my charts done, to get the background information, and then fill in the blanks as the days go by. Going back and watching Red Zone would not benefit me in any way. What benefits me is diving into the two teams that I'm covering. If it's Thursday night, if it's Sunday, I've got to know everything about those four teams that week, everything. So the rest of the league is not really of paramount importance for me. I'm still paying attention. I'm still reading everything that's out there to make sure that I'm on top of storylines in the league, but I'm not getting into the minutia of it. Things are set up now in a different manner because of the internet. I can watch a much shorter presentation of the game that I need to prepare for based on what the NFL provides, what CBS provides. So I'm just in a much different category in terms of what's available to me. What I illustrated to you was 1998, 99, 2000, the aughts. It moved from VHS to DVD. It moved from DVD to links. And now we're at a point where at any moment of any day, I can call up any situation that I want to look at from previous week, from 2 weeks ago, from 8 weeks ago, from 3 years ago, from 7 years ago. It's insane the amount of information and prep work that is available to you. So you just have to be smart about using your time and rationing it out and being very aware of how to compartmentalize to get yourself ready.
All right, Eagle with us here on Wex on Wex Off. We're going to continue to jump around. Got a couple more for you. LeBron or Jordan?
For what?
I'll let you answer however you want. Best player ever to play basketball.
Yeah, I would tell you that probably the most dominant player was Wilt Chamberlain in his day. The fact that he didn't win multiple championships is probably why he's viewed differently than Jordan and LeBron. Those guys were all around talents, and obviously the game has evolved and what was expected of players has evolved. Jordan as a competitor, I don't think you can match. So if you're going to rank him in terms of that, Jordan is going to win hats down. If you're looking at the physical stature and what the guy can do, then LeBron James is the choice, just physically. Imposing abilities, both ends of the court, just cerebral in how he approaches the game. I think he's got a computer for a brain and how he sees the game. So, look, these are fun arguments, of course, but if you're starting a team, that's basically what you're asking me. If I'm starting a team,
right?
Who am I starting with? I probably would take Michael Jordan first if I was starting a team.
That's fair enough. I think I'd agree with that because you talk about who you want to take the last shot, who you think is going to be the most clutch. Jordan's a better shooter.
Yes.
LeBron's, but the crazy thing about LeBron, as you may have known, he's the NBA's all-time leading scorer. And that's not even the best part of his game. I'll ask you one more thing about the Nets, and then I'll let you get on with your day. What do you think are realistic expectations for this Nets team? Obviously, they get swept there by Philadelphia. They're going to come back. They're going to have some more of these pieces together as they try to get everything going. What do you see coming from this team this year?
Well, I think they've shifted their approach. Obviously, when you've had Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant and James Harden and those types of players, and you make the decision that, okay, we've got to move on, and those guys made the decision. Let's be honest, they didn't want to be a part of it anymore. So at that point, there's really no deeper discussion than that. They pivoted to a younger group, a bunch of guys that are defensive minded and want to play good, hard-nosed defense. It's a likable group of guys, which, oftentimes I don't know if fans care that much. If your team's winning, you don't really get concerned about the affability quotient. But if you're trying to build something and you're trying to create a culture for this group and this organization, then it does play a role that these guys are willing to buy in to what it is the Nets are trying to do. So that part has been important. It's a versatile roster. They got a bunch of guys who can do a bunch of different things, young players and Bridges and Cam Johnson that have been rewarded with large contracts. So they're giving them that money with the idea that they're going to live up to it. Bridges got it in Phoenix. It carries over to Brooklyn. Johnson got it this year during the offseason. You've got interesting veterans and Spencer Dinwiddie, who's on the final year of his deal in his second stint with the Nets, but someone that they're certainly going to rely upon and need. And then maybe the biggest question of all, do you get Ben Simmons back at an all-star level? If you do, that changes everything. If he's what they thought they were trading for, not the guy that was struggling physically, mentally with Philadelphia, but the one that flourished, then your expectations change. And now you're looking at a team that could be really interesting in the Eastern Conference. But that's a huge question. Role players, Royce O'Neal, Dorian Finney-Smith, these are guys that they feel comfortable going into an opponent's gym with, that they're going to compete hard, they're going to play the right way, they're going to be team-oriented guys. And now it's a question of how Jacques Vaughn brings it all together. Is this a group that could surprise some people in the NBA? You look at the schedule for me early on, and you're like, oh boy, yeah, it's a challenge out there. Every night is a challenge. So under the old iteration, you felt pretty good about KD and Kyrie, and when they had Harden, like, oh yeah, they got more talent. They'll just outstar their opponent. Now it's going to be grinding out victories and finding ways to win. That's a dangerous place to live in the NBA, but it could also be a fun one if you get a group that gets on a roll.
And I think they certainly have the ability to do that. You look at their renewed commitment to defense when they made Jacques head coach for second time and now permanently. Their commitment to the defensive end of the floor really has been unmatched. It's going to be fun to watch. Ian Eagle of CBS Sports, and really just turn on a game. Him or his son's probably doing it.
Appreciate it, Wex. Thanks, man.
All right, thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
All right, sounds good. All the best.